Alright guys, this is a breaking story. The French police have made an arrest of the founder of Telegram. Now Telegram is a hugely important application in that it is used widely for all different types of groups around the world, from open source projects to things like protests. So what is the real meaning behind this? Well, they say that the reason for this arrest was because of a lack of content moderation. Well, there's also other interesting things about Telegram. And in fact, what's interesting is, people talk about Twitter or X being such a free speech paradise. Now, it is in the hands of someone. You know that it is going to be controlled. It is only a matter of time until the governments intimidate the ownership into applying the censorship they want. Now, the fact is, do you think that Twitter or X really is a fully open and free speech platform? Well, if you do, you should know that they just banned the hashtag for Telegram after this arrest. So this is no coincidence in my eyes. I see this as just another sign of things to come, and another reason you should spread yourself out across the net. Not only that, I encourage using things like Tor browser. I encourage highly using things like the I2P network as well, and hosting things like social media platforms on these networks, which is going to make something, especially if there's no face behind the platform, this could make it impossible to censor social media. And that is why I do think that, the smart move for the future, any large platforms should have their place on a darknet. And that is just to protect free speech into the future. Of course, you can't really have a corporate board behind that. You can't really have a company, so to speak. But if you really care about free speech, it's not going to be about profit anyway. And that is the way I see it. And if you're already seeing that they banned the hashtag Telegram, you think that's going to end there? The people who put all their faith into X or Twitter, you think that this is going to be the last bit of censorship? Now, there's a lot more censorship than that. I could tell you, just from my own research, that there is a lot more censorship going on the X platform than just this. And I think it's important to mention because people have put so much faith. I see so many people posting saying that it is their, it is their Messiah platform. They believe it is the free speech platform. And I'm not trying to say that it's not trying. I think governments are using things like this to intimidate people. This arrest is surely to intimidate other platforms into censorship and cooperation. Now, is it an attack on encryption? Sure, it's an attack on a provider of encryption. But that's another reason you should be using things like I2P, like this actual browser window is. This is Ars Technica on I2P. So you can actually read Wired, Ars Technica, several other websites on I2P. But the point is that the only place you're going to be safe in the future from censorship is on Tor, is on platforms like the I2P network, on projects like the coming or already beta Valid network, which I'll have to take a look at sometime. But really encourage you to check out Tor if you're not already using it. The more people who use Tor, the more people who are using I2P, the more anonymous the users become, because it just becomes a larger haystack for each user, which is like the needle in the haystack. So the more people who use it, the safer everyone is. And the reality is, we don't have any company that's coming to save us. That is just the fact. And we're seeing protests already where people are at the embassy in France to put after the arrest of Pavel Durov, they're putting Telegram paper airplanes right in the embassy bushes. And that's to signify the protest against this arrest. So as you can see, people are taking action. If you can get active, if you hear about a protest out locally for you or near the embassies in your area, I highly encourage getting involved in peaceful demonstrations. Just People need to get politically active. There is no savior coming to save you. You cannot vote your way out of this. This world is what it is. And the only thing we can do is get politically active on the ground. That is the only thing that's going to make change. It is the only thing that's going to save you, is if you actually are politically active. But if the majority are not, of course nothing's going to change. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So we're taking a look at the Reddit now to see what the latest news on this arrest is. Of course, I thought that would be a good place to try and get some information. And how interesting. Which ones are under French protection and which one is in French jail? So those two were protected. I believe, I'm not really sure. I guess that's the Khomeini guy from Iran. At one point, he must have been under protection. Now, there's also reports that people are using Telegram or have been using it in Africa, and it's also being used not only to fight against some of the French interests in Africa, but it's also been used to coordinate the Russian army. So this is another thing that came to mind when I found out about this arrest. I said, is it just about social media and censorship? Because that is what it is. It's not about moderation. When you see the word moderation, think censorship, because that's the same meaning. It's the same word. Moderation is just a friendly way to say censorship. I am a free speech absolutist. That is something I will say that definitely defines me, is I believe in absolute free speech. I believe that we can all argue about the best ideas and we'll talk about the truth and what's actually going on in the world, and that better ideas will always win out. And I'm not a Republican. I don't consider myself in any way related to any political party. I do believe that we should be working on individual issues, and that is the only way we're going to get real change. We need to come together and cross party lines. Forget the parties. The parties are just meant to put you in a box and then to pit you against one another. Divide and conquer. That is what the two-party system is for. And most democratic Western countries have some sort of a two-party system. And really, that's just the Hegelian dialectic, where one side creates the reaction from the other side, which is predetermined and is also predictable. So you can pretty much control the outcome of all politics when you have a simple two-party opposite system. Now, Tucker Carlson happened to interview this founder of Telegram, and I did watch that earlier. I didn't get a chance to gather the videos, but he mentions that one of his engineers was approached by a cyber officer, as he called it, and they wanted to know what kind of open source libraries were being used to implement the encryption, but they also wanted to know, according to Pavel Durov, that they wanted to implement certain things. They wanted to actually hire his engineer to make changes to Telegram. And now he took this as possibly inserting a back door. Well, I hope that wasn't the case, but, I'm going to report on it. Do I think... Now, here's another thing. A lot of people think the United States was behind this. I can't confirm that. I have no evidence to see that. And I don't report things without evidence. So in my opinion, this is just another pattern of action of France. Because if you look at the actions of France, they've been imprisoning people for speaking. And it makes perfect sense that they would arrest him more than any other country because of their practices against free speech. Now, is it possible that someone used France as a proxy to, intimidate and pull this guy into prison? That's possible, but is it likely? I really don't think so. I think this is just another EU situation where the EU is trying to restrict speech through so-called content moderation, which is really just censorship through a nicer term. And they also mentioned that Russia military may be using Telegram Messenger to communicate on the battlefield. So this could even relate possibly to the war in Ukraine. And that was something that came to mind to me. But I don't think it's, at the moment, I don't see any evidence to show that it's anywhere outside of France influencing this. I don't think it's China. I don't think it's Russia. I think this is a France operation where they arrested him because, they have such strict laws on speech to me, it makes perfect sense that they arrested him for the lack of content moderation, because they arrest people for just offending someone. I mean, come on. If they're going to arrest someone for offending someone, why wouldn't they arrest somebody who ran a platform where millions of people possibly could offend someone? To me, it makes perfect sense that this was just a simple French police operation. He landed in France and was promptly arrested. But I do think people need to protest against this. I really do believe that, we need to push back, because if you don't push back on this and you allow this to happen, what's going to happen is this is going to intimidate other platforms into censorship. And it's inevitable. If people do not properly push back on this arrest, we're going to see massive intimidation and censorship. And we're already seeing that X has banned the Telegram hashtag. I mean, that is just the beginning of this. I see this getting much worse. I think people are fools if they put all their eggs into the Twitter X basket. I think you should always spread yourself out a bit and use different handles. Use different identities across platforms. That way, if you get banned on one, you're going to have others to rely on. So, when we put all our eggs in one basket, we become a little more cautious about how we speak. And if you really want to speak out, you need to have more eggs in more baskets. You need to have more handles and more identities. And we may cover creating those in a coming video. So we see a lot of hashtags free Durov. But like I said, if you can get on the ground and visit the French embassy or anywhere else, I highly recommend getting involved in any protests, because this is going to have a cascading effect. What you think is just happening to Telegram is going to spread to other platforms, and it's already intimidated X platform into banning the Telegram hashtag. I believe it may or may not be involving the French government not wanting people to talk about this arrest, or not wanting any kind of protest to spread. So I do believe this is a sign of things to come. And if you are not willing to get involved on the ground, well, I mean, we deserve what we get. If we're not involved, we deserve what we get. That's what I have today, guys. I hope you like this report and how there is censorship spreading across platforms. That is something I'm not a fan of. I am a free speech absolutist. I do believe that bad, discussions can be improved with better discussions. That one bad argument is going to be, made sense with a better argument. So I do believe that it is so important that we keep free speech alive. And the only way to really do that, the only way, and this is the truth, the only way you're going to keep free speech alive is through integration with things like the Tor network, through the I2P network, platforms that are independent, that are open source projects where people just contribute code, where there is no corporation behind it, because the corporation is going to be targeted. And that's the reality of this. That's what I have today, guys. Make sure to like and share this video everywhere so people know about this, so we can help stop this. It's times like these that I do wish, I had a larger channel, that I could get this information out further and more widespread. And that was the whole purpose in creating this channel, was to spread information. And it's a shame that it's not as well promoted, because I think these topics are very important. So guys, thanks for your support. Really appreciate it. Make sure to like, share the video, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you think there's something behind this? Do you think that this was influenced by an outside country? I'm curious what you think. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be back later with more on how to protect your security and privacy.